Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Shcha Adeka Bando Matsangin Manguro Man Mahadana Man Nistaraka Bhagya Madananda Namostute. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam, Ketu Stuti, to Lord Sri Krishna. We left off on verse number 42. In the previous verses, having glorified Bhagavan and then glorified the devotee, he started describing how the devotees have become nishkama by the mercy of the Lord. Either by the mercy of the Lord's darshan, just by taking darshan of the Lord, then one becomes nishkama. Just like Rupa Goswami, when writing a verse about the deity, he says that the deity anga of bhakti, there are 5 very potent forms of bhakti, we are told. And Srila Rupa Goswami has composed a verse for each one of those 5 most potent forms of bhakti. So Archan Seva is one of them, or rendering service to the deity with love. And in the verse that Rupa Goswami composes is described, hey, if you're attached to your material things, then don't go and see that boy standing on the bank of Jamuna, because certainly you'll become enchanted and give up all material attachment. So just by darshan of the Lord, one may become nishkama. Otherwise, one becomes nishkama from hearing from the Lord Bhagavad Dharma. So that is what Chittiketu starts glorifying. That by hearing this Bhagavad Dharma, one becomes nishkama. And by that nishkam bhakti, one is able to conquer the Lord. So it is certainly the Lord's mercy when he distributes Srimad Bhagavatam, or the teachings of Bhagavad Dharma, which are his own teachings. Then in contrasting the teachings of Bhagavad Dharma, which generate nishkama, with other sort of teachings of Dharma found in the Vedic corpus, that was verse number 41. Chittiketu criticizes them as being filled with vismita dhiya, or vismita mati, the consciousness of I am I, essentially. And because of that consciousness, those dharmas are completely contaminated. I think he gives 3 nomenclatures there. Yeah, avishuddha, they're impure. Kshanishnu, they are temporary. Even if they generate some material result, they're ephemeral. And adharma bahula, they're filled with adharma. Once you have the consciousness of us and them, I am mine, this is mine, this is others, then that itself becomes the ground for all sorts of animosity, etc. So those dharmas are criticized. And now continuing in 2 verses, he continues the glories of this nishkam bhakti that is taught in Shastra, particularly bhakti shastras like Srimad Bhagavatam. So he wants to explain the previous verse a little bit further. The previous verse where the criticism is these dharmas grounded in ego, the ego of I and mine. Those dharmas are impure, temporary, and produce a dharma. So he describes it further in verse 42. That's where we left off. He's giving further explanation of this. So here's a translation. How can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and of others be beneficial for oneself and for them? Kakshema, so what benefit? This is the question. He's asking, what benefit is it from these other dharmas, vismita dhiya, which are grounded in the ego of I and mine, yours and mine and others, etc. What benefit can these produce? Nija parayo, to oneself and to others. Kiyan parta, he asks another question. How much value, artha, the word artha means like value or purpose. How much value is it in a dharma? Kiyam bharta swapara druha dharmena. How much value is it in a dharma that has swapara druha? So the word druha means envy. Swa means of one's own self, and para means of others. So how much value can be generated from a dharma that has envy of oneself and envy of others. So the way that envy is defined, the one that I know, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be for those, right? Dharma projita kaitavatra paramone masaranam satam. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Paradharma is revealed, and Kaitava Dharma, cheating Dharma, is kicked out, and it is embraced or comprehended by those who are nirmatsarya, which means without envy. So our acharyas have defined matsarya, envy, as intolerance of the value of others. This is the definition of envy: intolerance of the value of others. This is known as matsarya or envy. So nirmatsarya means the absence of this envy. And the devotees are nirmatsarya because they are sitam, right? Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsarya sitam. Sitam means those who can see the true value of life. The devotees, or the sat, those who are situated in the truly abiding reality, they see the difference between, at least fundamentally, the difference between matter and spirit. And so being able to see the consciousness of reality, they are not misled by appearances, such as the appearance of Hitler or Donald Trump or a family member who's getting on your nerve or whatever. They're not misled by appearances because they can see the consciousness behind all of life. And being able to see that and see that that consciousness is Paramatma Shakti, is intrinsically, related, or the Shakti of the Lord. So there is no question of his worth, the worth of the jiva, being expanded or diminished in terms of his position in Prakriti. This is how the envy rises. And envy rises because we do the measurement. Maya, one of the definitions of Maya is that we measure things. So we measure people according to their situation in Prakriti. We measure their worth according to their situation in Prakriti. And this is what generates the envy and animosity. But if you can see the consciousness behind Prakriti and you're not misled by the appearances, then you see that their value is not rooted or is not diminished or increased because of their situation in Prakriti. So the position of the jiva is not decreased by becoming a Hitler, nor is it exalted by becoming an Indra. His position is always as Paramatma Shakti. And that is where his true worth is, the true worth of the jiva. You can see that. So this is called satam. The devotees are called satam. They see the true value. Therefore, they are having absence of envy. And envy being defined as the intolerance of the value of others. So these other dharmas are being described here as swaparadruha. They have envy of oneself and envy of others. So that means there's a lack or an absence of the perception of the true value of oneself and the true value of others. The true value of oneself as minimally Paramatma Shakti. And also you can say the true, the intrinsic potential of consciousness in terms of its communing with a higher order of reality. That is also absent. You don't see what is the true potential. You only see what is apakriti, and you're measuring in terms of that. So you don't see what is the true potential of consciousness. Of course, for bhaktas, we say that the true potential ultimately lies in the actualization of devotion. That is a potential that the jivas have, but it is actualized by something that is actual already. In other words, Bhagavad Dharma or bhakti is already actual. It already is self-realized. Self-realized, that's the word. Anyway, the bhakti, they are already actual. And so the potential for the jiva can become actualized by something that is actual, by contact with that bhakti dharma, by contact with the bhakta. Then that potential becomes actualized. So you don't see that potential in the jiva. You don't see the jiva also as Paramatma Shakti. So then you're called as envious of yourself. Why envious of yourself? Because you perform activities that do not actualize the potential or do not give realization of the soul. Rather, you do the activities which increasingly cover that potential and the possibility of its actualization. So this is called envious of oneself, but envy for others is the same. Not seeing them as souls, not seeing their true potential as, bhaktas, for example. So you only see them in terms of hypocrisy. So you say they are bad, they are good, they're this or that in terms of their position of hypocrisy. And so you also have envy of them by performing activities that do not help to augment their potential or realize it. This is called envy of oneself and enviousness of others. So interestingly enough, Prabhupada's purport speaks about animal slaughter. And also when Jiva Goswami is talking about this verse, Nirmatsarya Satam in the Bhagavatam, that the devotee is freed from the envy. He said this also includes that they are full of compassion and therefore they don't perform harm to the animals. So the idea here is that, and this is how Prabhupada chooses to expand on it in the purport, and the Karma Kanda sections of the Vedas, or the sections of Shastra that deals with the materialistic dharma, then in them there will be a lot of discussion about animal sacrifices. This is the example that is given. So in the animal sacrifices, you do harm to another animal. Why do you do harm to another animal? Because you don't see the value of the animal. You don't see the value in terms of the spiritual nature of the animal. You see the animal only in terms of what it can do for you in terms of your position of hypocrisy. So you're prepared to do violence against the animal also. Prabhupada goes on to say the injunction, well, someone may argue this is the injunction of Vedas. They say, well, this is to restrict your meat eating, otherwise it would go completely out of control. But actually it is a sinful thing, but in order to give restriction, because anyway you will eat meat. So some injunction is given, some vidhi how to do it. But this is intrinsically related to violence, which means that you have envy of others. Not being able to see their value, prepared to do violence against them. So this is the example that is given. And of course, as envy for oneself, Prabhupada quotes this nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. So anushti tasya dharmasya, I think he quotes the verse, yeah, vikshaksena katasuya, na upadaya yadiratim shama evihi kevala. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam's opening statements. And it says, that dharma in which you are situated, if it does not give rise to reti for the topics of Krishna, if it doesn't give rise to the ruchi or the reti for the topics of Krishna, then that dharma is shrama eva hi kevala. It is certainly useless labor. So this verse is given as an example of envy of oneself. What value? Kiyam bharata swapara druha dharmena. What value, what artha comes from those dharmas which show envy of oneself and envy of others? This is Tritiketa's statement here. This is an expansion of why he says that these other dharmas are abhishuddha, impure, temporary, and filled with adharma bahula, filled with adharma. Okay, next part of the verse. What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained, right? So we just discussed that. So by causing pain to oneself, one's own self, due to self-envy, and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices irreligion. So swadrohat parasampidhaya. So again, swadrohat means envy of oneself, self-envy. And parasampidhaya, by giving pain to others because of being envious of them, then one practices adharma. And tava kulpaha, one arouses the Lord's anger. That is what Tritiketa is saying here. One arouses the Lord's anger. The idea here is that being unaware of oneself and one's potential, that you act only in terms of the modes of material nature, obviously. And as Krishna is telling in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, karanam guna sangasya sarasayori jamasu. Acting in terms of only the gunas of nature, this is called guna sangha. Because of this guna sangha, then you are going high and low in the different species of life. All of this is considered self-envy. And sometimes, of course, when you're in Rajas and Tamas, you do the violence towards others in the name of religion also. So tava kopaha, this arouses the Lord's anger. That's what he says here. The verses that Prabhupada quotes were incidentally mentioned by Hari Sham the other day in class. where Krishna speaks. I'll read the verses. It's from chapter 16, the divine and demonic assets. But here are the two verses. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demon becomes envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in his own body and in the bodies of others, and blasphemes against the real religion. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. So this is a verse that is meant to give the import of arousing the Lord's anger. Of course, we hear from Shastra like Bhagavad Gita that the Lord he's not envious or favorable towards anyone who's just situated outside of devotion to himself. Samaham sarvabhuteshu namedushotstignapriyaha. But the arousal here of anger means that one acts in terms of the lower gunas of nature. And so from those actions, you get a certain fruit, and the distributor of that fruit is the Paramatma. It is not that acts alone are the cause of a particular fruit. So that is a misunderstanding that, for example, the Karma Mimamsas have. If I do this act, that invariably produces this fruit. But it is saying that even when two people perform the same action the same way, the fruit that comes can be drastically different. Means that there's someone who's giving the fruit also. That is why Krishna says, karma neva adhikariste, you can do the work, ma karma paleshu kadachana, but the fruit is not depending on you. Because the fruit has what fruit comes depends on other factors. The most important of which is known as daiva or paramatma, basically. So paramatma is the distributor of the fruit. So if you do actions in Raja Guna and Tama Guna, you do violence towards others, then Tadakopa, the Lord's anger is aroused, and he casts you down, according in reciprocation with the actions that you perform. That is the meaning there, into the lower species of life. And that way you'll be even further obscured from the vision of the self and the vision of your own potential. In other words, you'll continue on with the activities of envy. And therefore, how to make progress in life, not possible. So this is Rishiketu's further explanation of his censorship, I suppose, his censor of the dharmas that do not teach Nishkam Bhakti, basically. So in wrapping up this little portion of his stuti about the importance of Bhagavad Dharma as taught by the Lord, so the next verse is spoken. The next verse in the commentaries is said to be a response to a hypothetical doubt that may come up. That the reason people do Kamya Dharma means the dharmas that are meant to fulfill desires. So the reason people do that is because that produces results fast. Whereas this Nishkam Bhakti doesn't seem to produce any results. Or if it does produce results, we don't see them. This is also Yudhishthira Maharaj's, you can say, part of his concern or his observation in the 88th chapter of the 10th canto, when he inquires from Krishna how it is that he is the husband of the goddess of fortune, but his devotees have no opulences or are often seen to have little to no opulence. Whereas those who are devoted to Shiva, who is a renunciate, seem to be extremely opulent. In response to that, Krishna, in short, says that Shiva is the husband of the goddess Durga, the worn of the Prakriti made of three modes of nature. So the opulences given by Shiva are opulences that are composed of the gunas of nature. So these gunas, they're like ropes. So their opulences become the ropes that bind them to samsara. So is that really an opulence? That is the sort of hypothetical there, or rhetorical question that would be asked. Whereas the wealth given by Krishna, Madhava, the husband of the goddess of fortune, is of the Nishkam type. Or he's not Nishkam, Nirguna type. Nirguna means beyond the gunas. So the wealth of the Shiva Bhaktas is in terms of the gunas. The wealth of the Bhaktas is Nirguna. So Nirguna means you not be able to see it with your eyes necessarily. You cannot see. Like Nirgun Bhakti. One can see Nirgun Bhakti with the senses. So that is the wealth of the Bhakta, is Nirgun Bhakti. His wealth is Nirguna. Maybe it doesn't have any way it can be measured in terms of the sensual and mental confirmation. But that wealth is the currency by which they come out of material nature as a secondary effect, and as a primary effect, they get the love for Krishna, which is the ananda that everyone seeks. So who is truly wealthy? But anyway, this question Yudhishthira Maharaj was asked, where is the fruit of this nirguna bhakti? Well, the fruit is also nirguna. So you'll not be able to see it. So someone may say like this, the reason people do kamya dharma is because it gives results that we can see it, we can feel it viscerally. Whereas those who do the nirguna bhakti, nishkam bhakti, where is the result? So in response to that, Shruti is speaking in the next verse. It is so this is verse 43. He says here, my dear Lord, one's occupational duty is instructed in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, according to your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. So navyabhicharati. Navyabhicharati means that which is instructed by the Lord, it never fails. So Krishna only speaks about Bhagavad Dharma or Bhakti Dharma. That is the only Dharma that Krishna himself directly speaks about and advocates for, and according to his own statement in the Uddhava Gita. So that never fails. Navyabhicharati, that never fails to give the result or give the fruit. Whereas Kamya Dharma may actually fail because it depends on other factors like your aparabdha karma. There are other factors that play into that fulfillment of desires. Whereas that which is Bhakti Dharma, that will never fail. Such examples, verses are stated. So Tava Iksha, that which is according to your outlook. So Yaya Yabhihito Bhagavato Dharma, that is Bhagavad Dharma, which the Lord has declared himself. So this never fails. His teaching never fails to give its fruit. If you do Bhagavad Dharma and you progress through the various stages, it will never fail to give its fruit. That's what he wants to say here. Next part of the verse, those who follow their occupational duties under your supervision, being equal to all of the entities moving and not moving, and not considering high and low, are called Aryans. Such Aryans worship you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Stira Chara Sattva Kadambeshu. Stira means the non-moving. Chara means the moving. Sattva Kadambeshu. So amongst the living entities who are moving and non-moving. And apritagdhiya. Apritagdhiya is an important word. It means one who is without seeing distinctions. Because again, remember, the seeing of distinctions is the ground for envy and animosity. So the devotee here is described as apritagdhiya. His intelligence is without separateness. That means the happiness of others is his own happiness. The suffering of others is his own suffering. He doesn't see in terms of, oh, this person is a high position, this person's in a low position. Rather, he sees the soul or the consciousness behind all life. Apritagdhiya. So they render yam upasite, they worship Bhagavan according to his own instructions, and Prabhupada's adding in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And these persons are called as Aryans. Aryans are those who do as the Lord has instructed. Prabhupada is included within this Bhagavad Dharma. They follow Varnashram, because Varnashram is also given by Krishna according to Bhagavad Gita. He also gives Varnashram. So they follow his instructions or teachings according to Varnashram. And they follow the essence of his teaching, which is Bhakti Dharma, seeing without the separateness. So they, Navya Vichariti, they never fail to get the result, and a most wonderful, auspicious result. This is the idea here. This is to placate the doubt that people give up this Bhakti Dharma because it seems to fail to give results. So this is always a big doubt amongst the bhaktas. They may be chanting for so many years and they say that, oh, it's not giving the result. And so being, what's the word I'm looking for? Being a little demoralized by that, they may again embrace Kamya Dharma, fruit of activity. why I should bother? Let me instead just try to enjoy the material world like the karmis. They may think like this. So the commentators say to this, let the uncultured people think like that. So this is interesting. Not everyone is ready to be convinced. Not everyone is ready to receive higher teaching. There is a sort of qualification of humility required to be receptive. Just like simple imagery of that. If you want to transfer water from one cup to another, then one cup has to become low, right? And so that the other cup can easily transfer the water. So there is a certain qualification of humility required to be receptive. Now, when you're uncultured here, anaryan, just like Krishna criticizes Arjuna, you're anarya jushtam, aswarga, akitikanam Arjuna. He criticized Arjuna as being anarya jushtam. Why are you acting like the anaryans, those who aren't aryan? Basically means people who are identified with their bodies so intensely that they become insane. Prabhupada has quoted this verse, Nunam pramata kurute vikarma, and indriya kritya apranoti. They become, pramata means basically insane, mad after the sense gratification. So being mad, they're prepared to do all sorts of simple activities to enjoy their senses. They're mad. So that the uncultured people are like this. They're not prepared to be convinced because they're not humble, basically. They feel that, I can control nature according to my desire. And by that, I can enjoy. They basically think in this way. So they're not prepared to receive. So let them think, let them go on like that. Let them go on, and maybe if they suffer the price of their ignorance in the form of suffering, that suffering will generate a humility that allows for receptivity. So let the uncultured people think like this, but the cultured persons, they have the conviction that this bhakti dharma will not fail to give its fruit. It has already given so many fruits, actually, and it will give more fruits by the continuous progress. So we should be Aryans, we should not be Anaryan. Anaryan Jushtam, when Prabhupada discusses this word Anaryan Jushtam in the purport, he said it is those who give more like authority to their feelings, and we'll qualify that and say their unenlightened feelings, than to their dharma. This is called Anarya Jushtam. So Arjuna was exhibiting that because he has a duty to perform, but instead of being prepared to perform his duty, he's prepared to give up his duty because of some temporary feeling inside. Then he will give up his dharma, he'll go to the forest, and then that emotional state will pass. Again, he'll come situated in his kshatriya state, and then again he'll fight, but on the basis of not his dharma, on some other basis he'll fight, because he has nature like that, very hard to give up on his nature. So simply for some emotional state, you give up your dharma. This is called Narya Jushtam. But the Aryans, despite the emotional turmoil, which they recognize to be temporary, they will stay fixed in their dharma. So we will stay fixed in our Bhagavad Dharma. Yes, sometimes we get an emotional turmoil, and that time the doubts are generated. Will this work? Will this not work? Am I getting the fruit? Am I not getting the fruit? You get like that. But actually, that is temporary. And the Aryans, they will remain fixed in their dharma. And for us, that means our Bhagavad Dharma. We will remain fixed here only. Utsaha, Nishchaya, Dharya, Nishchaya. I'll be fixed here only. I'm not going anywhere else. Dharya, patience. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says patient means whether this lifetime or in 100 lifetimes or 1,000 lifetimes, Krishna will reciprocate with me. I'm not going anywhere. And it's called Dharyat. So like this, the devotees stay situated in Bhagavad Dharma, knowing that it shall not fail. It cannot fail. Whereas Kamya Dharma, it is always failing. Even when it succeeds, it fails. Because the nature of Kamya Dharma is that, what is that? Again, Kama Rupena Konteya Dushparena Ananainacha. By the fulfillment of desire, desire is augmented more, like burning sensation, which is never satisfied. So even when succeeding, it fails, actually. You will fail to get peace, and then once your peace is disturbed, you will fail to get happiness. So even when Kamya Dharma succeeds, it fails. So in this way, the bhakta will stay fixed. The Arya will stay fixed in his own dharma. That is bhakti dharma. So in this way, Tritaketu Stuti is on this section on Shastra and its role in the life of the bhakta, and its contrast with other Shastras in thinking, which doesn't teach us karma, is given. So then there are a few more verses. We'll pause here. The Stuti goes all the way up to verse number 48. So we have 6 verses left, I think. 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. Oh, 5 verses are left over. So we'll complete maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. We'll complete this Stuti and move on. Okay, anyone wants to say anything? That is all for today. So in other words, envy of oneself would mean to not see value in your own self. Yeah. You could take, I guess if you want to be really broad-minded by the definition, you could take it to mean you don't see the value even in your empirical self. The value in the position you're in, empirically speaking. But I think the definition of Bhagavatam ultimately is we don't see the value means the soul. He's like a unit of artha. Krishna is called as the artha, right? Sometimes qualified by Paramartha, but he is the artha. He is the real value of everything, without which everything is valueless, actually. Yartha. So Krishna is the artha, actually. And as a anksha of that reality, so we are artha also. Our real artha is our soul that's different from the body. That is a real artha. So when you don't see that, and then you don't try to activate the soul's potential, so then this is called a self-envy. So everyone is basically practicing the self-envy only by performing karmic activities, fruitive activities. Every fruitive activity is an act of self-envy, which ignores the true value of who you are and the true value of your potential. So this is the practice of self-envy, basically. At least taking the definition of envy given by our acharyas to the Nimratsarya Suttam verse. So that's how we have tried to explain it here. So it is an interesting concept, heard of envy of others, but never envy of one's own self. I'm surprised because Prabhupada, I've heard devotees talk about this over many years, and I've never been super clear about it. I just give it another shot. The idea of self-envy based on this definition of envy given by Sridhar Swami and Jiva Goswami. Is the soul feel envious, or is the mind? It's a good question. I also kind of thought it more like the mind. The mind fails to recognize the conscious principle behind life and thinks itself the conscious principle. Most people think that the self is the mind. So then it is the mind that performs the fruitive activity. And in this way, it shows envy towards the soul. And I think that's an interesting spin on that idea also, honestly. I also was kind of thinking like that. Would preaching the way Srila Prabhupada did come under Nirgun Bhakti? Why not? As it is clear that he could see the fruits or the results. Okay, I get it. Because we were saying the fruits of Nirgun Bhakti are not manifest to the senses. But we could see the results, sure. Nirgun Bhakti means Shravan, Kirtan, etc. So Prabhupada's preaching is Kirtan. Certain results will certainly come, undoubtedly, yes. But it may not always be self-evident. So this is a general feeling that bhakti is transforming a person from the inside. And that is the thing that counts the most. So what happens on the inside is generally not appreciated by those who are preoccupied with externals. That is Krishna's statement in the Gita. What is night for common man is a time of awakening for self-control. The time of awakening for common man is night for the introspective sage. So the common man is awake to the external world, and the self-control introspective sage is awake to the inner world. So transformation is happening in the inner world. So the self-control sage, they appreciate, but the common man doesn't appreciate unless there's something external. So although sometimes bhakti is also demonstrating itself externally also. So many fruits coming externally. Only then will the materialistic person maybe be open to it. But otherwise, it is saying that bhakti is happening internally. So then people say, what do you get for all this chanting you're doing, all this bhajan you're doing? What do you get? You're not getting anything. I told this story many times over the years. When I joined, first year I joined, and with Nandana Prabhu, he had this, cart, where you travel, the big bag for traveling. He had Jagannath stickers all over it. And he would make us sing down the hallway. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath. And we had to sing anyway. A little traumatizing for a new bhakta, a few months in. But we were how you say, transitioning from the red line to the blue line in Chicago. The long hallways there, then you come up to Blue Line. And this one Bible thumper was there. He looked like a typical hood Bible thumper, like had the curly hair, like the, what do you call it? Like the greasy curls, a suit that was way too big for him, looked super ghetto. And he was
Jerry
like
curls.
Jerry curls, yeah. Oh my God, he looked super ghetto. Jerry curls, he had this huge gray suit on. And when he saw us singing Jagannath, which was a Hindu deity, he immediately said, what has your God done for you? My God gave me a good house, good wife, money. He was going on a long list of all the things Jesus gave her. And then I commented, he says, what has your God done for you? And I said, he took all those things away. And he was left a little bit like bewildered, like, what type of religion? What is this? So generally it is seen like that. Nirguna Bhakti is producing a result internally. So only those with internal vision can appreciate that result. Otherwise, otherwise they say, what is this Bhakti produce? Then they take shelter of Kanya Dharma. How to do the Dharma to fulfill their desires. Okay, Mukunda has a question, then Gil has a question.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I was trying to think how to phrase this, but basically with this verse, Chitraketu is speaking about like what is the use of a religion that produces envy. And I was thinking also, even in our bhakti practice, actually, I guess leading all the way even to the perfected stage, their envy can manifest like, at our imperfect level, it maybe manifests as just like wanting to experience what we perceive others experiencing, or wanting to have an opportunity of association or service that we see others having that we don't have ourselves. And then even on the perfect stage, obviously it's a completely different envy, but like, gopis fighting because of noticing that one is getting the association of Krishna while the other is not. I was just curious. I mean, perfect stage maybe is not worth talking about, but on our imperfect level, I was wondering if you could comment on the fact that we also seem to experience envy in our practice.
Yeah, what is the problem? If you see someone is experiencing ecstasy, I also want ecstasy. There's no problem there. Many times when people would see Mahaprabhu and the devotees doing Sankirtan, it is said that Mahaprabhu would convert just by people seeing his beauty and seeing the beauty of his Sankirtan with the bhaktas, they will become converted. And that is also our talking point. We are happy, you also become happy. What is the problem? So someone shall see and they feel envy insofar as, oh, I also want this thing. But you want something that is of value. And that is not envy in the true sense, because if you see the value of something, envy is defined, we said, intolerance of the value of others. So if you see someone has bhakti and you're not able to tolerate that, and you wish they didn't have bhakti, so that is very bad. But if you say that they have bhakti, a valuable thing, and you say, let me also get that, that is very good. So you can say this is the healthy engagement of the envious propensity in devotion. But if you are having the feeling that someone should fall down, or you're unhappy to see their envy, so that is why the Bhagavatam for us teach it has to purify. Because this verse we're quoting, Dharma Projekta Kaitavatra Paramonemasarana. So the last line says, Ishvara Sadhyo Hriti Avarudite Atra Kriti Vishu Shushabhistakshana. It says that God is immediately captured in the heart of the pious person, Kritibi, who is Nirmatsarya Satam. The Kritibi means the person who is without envy, because he sees the Satam, because he sees the true value of things. God is immediately captured in the heart just by their desire to hear, what to speak of them actually hearing. Just by the desire to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, God becomes captured in their heart. This is true for the non-envious. So then the question is brought up, well, what about the sadhaka who has envy? There, for him, God is not immediately captured in the heart. For him, he has to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and get purified of that desire. So then God will become captured in his heart gradually because of the envy. So yeah, we have the defect of being conditioned. Therefore, we do have self. And that requires us to be purified of that propensity by associating with love in the form of the sound of Srimad Bhagavatam. The only, you could say, vidhi, if there's any vidhi at all, in the spiritual world of perfect love, is to love. And the only nisheda is to not envy. So because we kind of have envy from the beginning of this point, so we have to associate with the vibrations of love and the poetry of Srimad Bhagavatam, and allow our hearts to become consumed by the beauty of that. So then when your heart is consumed and surrendered to that beauty, there's no space for envy that time. But when we're not experiencing beauty, then that leaves room for envy to sit down with us and mess around. So we have to allow ourselves to associate with the beauty of Krishna and the beauty of Krishna's poetry, the beauty of that which will inspire us to surrender. Then that time envy cannot sit there. So I was saying one week, and it came up again in my meditations. You know, this verse, Tadashma Sadam, that the heart is stone. Ashma Sadam. The essence of the heart is stone, that despite chanting Harinam with concentration, still no bhava comes. So we must know that heart to be stone. So I was saying, Mahaprabhu's Ansha Lila, when he would, particularly when Jagannath would become sick and he will be invisible for 15 days, they would take him into the doctor and all that. So Mahaprabhu will go to Alalanath to see the deities there. He will be in great pain of separation. And the heat of his separation was causing the stones to melt. He would step on a stone, and his footprint would get immediately pressed upon it. He would lean on something, it would melt. So I was saying like this, if we hear Mahaprabhu's Ansha Lila, then Mahaprabhu's Ansha Lila is filled with the heat of his separation, and it causes stones to melt. So our stone-like heart can melt by hearing Ansha Lila and allowing ourselves to be captivated, enchanted by the beauty of Mahaprabhu Lila in general, but especially Ansha Lila. Then when you're enchanted by beauty, that time envy can't enter inside such a heart because you're enthralled by a whole nother reality. So that is Bhagavatam's approach, that if you have envy, then God is not captured in the heart immediately. That is a result for those who are non-envious. Simply their desire to hear captures God in the heart. But if you have envy, it happens gradually. You have to allow yourself, your ears, to drink the nectar of Bhagavatam. What is that verse? I was learning it. Hold on, it's a very nice verse. The last verse of chapter 2, Canto 2. It's a good verse. Why am I forgetting the Sanskrit now? So, yeah, Pibhanti ye Bhagavata Atmanasatam Katamritam Shavana Puteshu Samritam. So it says, those who drink this Srimad, those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees. So Pibhanti ye Bhagavata Atmanasatam. Those who drink the Katamritam, which is about Krishna, who is our very self. Shravanuputeshu Sampritam. Shravanuputeshu means, within their ear holes, like the wine glass, and it's fully filled up with that Katamritam, the elixir of the Katamritam. Then what is the result? Punantite, they are purified. Vishaya Vidusha Tashayam. They are purified of the polluted aims of life, known as Visha, sense enjoyment. Or in the context of what we're saying, the envy. So we just have to allow our ears to fully fill up with that elixir. And then when we're enchanted by the beauty, then the envy can't sit there, then we'll be okay. Otherwise, envy just be floating around, causing a little disturbance to our bhajan. So yeah, check out Anchalila. I've been saying this a lot this year. Anchalila will save the day. Mahaprabhu's Anchalila will save the day. Melt the heart, make us enchanted with beauty of Krishna. And we'll be saved. Okay, Gail has something also. It looks like.
Yeah, just you use this word Visheda. I don't know the translation.
Prohibition, like you have the injunction and you have what is prohibited in Shastra.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
do this, don't do this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So don't do this part is the Nisheda part.
Oh, Nisheda with an N at the beginning?
Yes.
Oh.
Nisheda.
Okay. Yeah, when you were explaining Krishna's anger toward the envious, then you brought in the discussion about basically Krishna as one of the 5 factors of action. Wait, was it then?
Yes.
Or maybe, oh, yeah.
Prabhupada
So like
verses from Gita, which says he, the Lord, casts down in the Lord's species of life, the demons, perpetually. So this is a response to their adharmic activities. All this his anger.
Basically, he's giving them just this karmic reaction. That's what's being characterized as his anger.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
This is this last thing. Back to basics question. So jivas are Paramatma Shakti.
Yes.
But I've always carried my what I've learned early on is that we are sparks of Radharani. I mean,
I don't know where that comes from, honestly. So I can't. I've heard this too, but I don't know from where it comes.
Oh well, thank you for validating my misconceptions. Okay, yeah, I think the other problem I've had with that is the fact that the Paramatma, his role is to deal with those of us in this material world. Correct. And so even after we become liberated, we are still considered, our tattva, I guess, never changes. So yeah, so even after we become
correct,
we are still Paramatma Shakti, but when we, let's say, return or are participating in this spiritual world,
Mhm.
what is his role at that time in our lives?
Paramama is there. Paramama is there in the form of Bhagavan.
Uh-huh.
So Paramama is also Bhagavan in relation to the material world. And in relation to the spiritual world, he's just Bhagavan only.
Yeah, because it's that verse, but 1 to 11, right?
One, two, that's,
Paramatmeti.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good also. Yes.
So basically, it means that although we are always Paramatma Shakti, we will, once we become self-realized, it'll change the way we relate to him. We'll relate to him as Bhagavan, is it? Instead of relating to him as Paramatma. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Jai-ho. Okie dokie. If there's not anything else, then maybe we'll pause for today. Thank you all very much. Hariam Tatsat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.